Hey everyone, today's video will be a bit different. I felt it was time for me to sit down with all of you. No interviews, no traveling, and no studios. I've now been running the channel for 8 years, and during this time I've traveled extensively, interviewed people from all around the world, and gathered a whole luggage of information that I would love to share with you. Today's video will be, you guessed it, all about European dating. I've recently spent 2 months traveling around Europe filming videos and felt it was time to sum up my experiences. What's more, I've lived in Europe, specifically Portugal, for around 2 years. I've traveled Europe extensively, time and time again, and have interviewed Europeans for many years. I also do a lot of research to keep myself informed and up to date because I'm obsessed with what I do. And by the way, if you are too, please take a second to subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit the bell button. Something that I wanted to clarify is that this video is based on real facts. It's not just my opinion. However, things around the world are changing rapidly fast. So this video might not be as relevant for Gen Z who's grown up with dating apps and social media. There are countless videos done of Europe and it's usually painted as this one big giant lump. Oh, look at this European style of life, you know, just drinking wine and doing siestas all day long. Yeah, okay. I think that my subscribers are a group of educated and open-minded people, but this is something that needs to be said. Europe is not a country. Europe is a continent comprised of 51 distinct countries. Each of those countries has a distinct culture, and that comes with a distinct dating culture. The word dating is an American invention. It was allegedly George Ade, a columnist for the Chicago Record, that first coined the phrase in 1896, and it originally referred to public courtship.
Say, Kay, next Friday, would you like to see Wagon Train at the movies?
Oh, I'm sorry, Nick.
In Europe, however, the word dating wasn't widely used until fairly recently with the arrival of dating apps. Group dates were much more common than formal one-on-one dates, which is why the first country on our list doesn't actually have a word for it. The first on the list is France, and yes, it is a country that actually doesn't have a word for date. The closest translation would be rendezvous. However, that actually translates to appointment. Not very romantic, right? There's also rendezvous galant. However, that is considered too old-fashioned. It largely comes from the fact that French don't typically do one-on-one dates, rather group dates. And I can understand why. If you've ever gone on a date from a dating app, it can be stiff and unnatural to try to gauge if there's any interest by sitting across from each other and firing away questions at one another. When you go out as a group, there's less pressure of you both to find the spark, and you can take a break from asking each other questions and just observe each other from the sidelines, which I think is a much more natural way to build attraction. Once you start dating someone in France, it's assumed that you are then exclusive. It's not considered cool to start shopping around for the next best thing, for that ultimate package. Dating a few people American style is kind of considered bros and selfish. Once you start seeing that one person, you two are together. On the other hand, there is no expectation that your exclusive relationship is there for life. You can stay together for 5 years, 5 months, or 5 days. Love, like any feeling, comes and goes, and the French believe that's just the way life works. This, of course, tends to differ with the rise of the dating apps, and Paris would probably be more commitment phobic than a smaller city like Toulouse, as all big cities tend to be. Overall, there's less of a focus on concrete labels and more on the fluidity, the game, dance, the grayish tones when it comes to love. There's less of an expectation to follow some pre-established set of conventions. Where to go on a date, when to have sex, how to behave. You also need to keep in mind that the French culture is a lot more high context than the American culture. There's a lot more implied meaning. You don't have to spell things out. High context cultures typically rely on body language, intonation, facial cues, and other subtle hints to get the message across. Japan is a great example of a high context culture. Also remember that France is a country of debates, discussions, and deep conversations. So if you don't agree with what someone has just said, feel free to vocalize it. It's absolutely okay to have your own opinion. In fact, the French people will probably respect you for having your own set of beliefs and for standing behind those beliefs. That would probably be way more respected than someone that just nods along in order to be polite, as we do in North America. Don't worry, if a French person doesn't agree with you, they will definitely tell you outright.
Binôme, c'est quand ça communique entre les deux. D'où ça communique pas du tout. Tu me dis sans arrêt ce que je dois faire.
It's funny, I was having drinks with a few friends of mine and this French girl that I just met, and I said something to her about French politics, something funny. I thought it was funny, to which she strongly disagreed, and she started saying, no, I don't agree with this. This is really stupid. This is really silly. And had I not known that this is an aspect of the French culture to disagree that way, I might have gotten quite hurt. This is not something you run into very often in Canada. But I was aware of that, and so I decided to stand my ground and to debate my side of it. And in the end, it all worked out fine, and we were laughing and talking about something else. The next country on the list is Belgium. Now, it's important to point out that Belgium actually has a few parts to it. The Walloon part is a French-speaking part of Belgium. There's also a Flemish part of Belgium, or we can say the Dutch part of Belgium. The Walloon part and the Flemish part are a little bit different. I know the Walloon part a little bit better, so maybe my portrayal won't be as accurate for the Flemish part of the country. Let me know below. What I've discovered is that Belgians are quite informal when it comes to dating. There is a certain casualness, a laid-back aspect to the Belgians. The let's go with the flow type of personality that I absolutely love about this culture. They tend to steer away from the formal interview style dates. What I personally love about the Belgians is their dark, cynical, and sarcastic sense of humor. Men, if you want to flirt with women here, steer away from being macho. That is a huge turnoff. A laid-back, witty guy will score a lot more points than some macho dude pulling all the stops in order to get the women. Because remember, Belgian women are quite laid-back and down to earth in general. According to Statista, Belgians value qualities like kindness, happiness, and humor way above the superficial ones like facial appearance, makeup, youthfulness, sexiness, and body shape. We see that Belgian men value makeup least and Belgian women value sexiness least. Of course, men still value facial appearance over women, and women value intelligence over men. Next on the list is Germany. I've just spent a few weeks traveling around Germany, filming videos about German culture and dating. So if you haven't yet watched them, it's kind of a waste. There's a lot of really valuable information in there, so go and check them out. But it goes without saying that Germany is not created equally. There is the more reserved part of Germany in the north and the more conservative part of Germany in the south, or in the Bavarian region. There's also East Germany and West Germany, and all of those have their regional differences. Overall, I'm not going to tell you anything new when it comes to Germany. Well, we all know that Germans value honesty and being straightforward, so when it comes to dating, complimenting someone or being too flattering or chatting someone up, all of that is kind of considered a turn off. Less cheese is better. However, fun fact, Germany is one of the few countries, if not the only country, to have the talk to determine exclusivity. Yes, Germans kind of do things American style. However, don't take that to mean that Germans date multiple people at the same time. That's not quite a thing here, and it might actually be frowned upon. But again, another disclaimer, I'm not talking about cities like Berlin where open relationships are common and people just kind of sleep around and do whatever the hell they want. Those cities live by their own rule. Honestly, guys, I feel like I've done way too much content about Germany, and I know you think I'm obsessed with Germany, so I'm just gonna move on to the next country. If you guys want to know more about Germany, then go ahead and check out the videos. The next country on the list is one I haven't really done any videos on. There was one video that I did like many years back, and that's the only video that I've done about Austria. Why haven't I done many videos about Austria? Well, I haven't featured a lot of countries on my channel yet, but I also find that Austria is quite similar to Germany when it comes to mentality. Yes, Austrians, I know that's a terrible thing to say. So let me focus on the few differences that I see between the German and the Austrian culture. Austrians think that the Germans take everything too seriously, that they have no sense of humor. And the Austrians that I've met had a great sense of humor. However, I also think that Austria is not the friendliest place to make friends as a foreigner. I mean, Vienna was rated as the least friendly city in the world for making friends. I almost went there to create a video about that, but then I just thought it's way too depressing of a topic. And I already had the most lonely country, so I didn't want to make any more really negative videos. I recently also went to Salzburg and talked to some locals there who told me that the Salzburg locals tend to be gruff and pessimistic. What's different between the Austrian and the German way of dating is that the Austrians tend to be more traditional. So if you're going out with an Austrian man, he might take you to a restaurant, pay the bill, and do something quite romantic for you. True story. There's more formality when it comes to Austrian dating versus direct and to the point German dating. However, despite being different nationalities, Bavarians and Austrians actually have more in common than Bavarians and Northern Germans. Next up, we are going to this amazing warm country, Spain. Again, it is quite tricky to generalize Spain, as Spain is comprised of 17 autonomous regions. So from the Basque Country to Catalonia to Andalusia, the dating culture might shift somewhat. Parts of the country are more conservative and parts of the country tend to be more liberal. One thing I want to point out, it is so obvious, it hurts. Spain is not Latin America. Let me repeat that. Spain is not Latin America. And yes, even Latin America is incredibly diverse, from Chile to Brazil to Mexico to Colombia. However, what I find tends to happen a lot is that people tend to think of Spain as an extension of Latin America and to label Spaniards as romantic, passionate, etc., etc. You know, men sing serenades under the balconies of Spanish women in the voice of Enrique Iglesias. Maybe not Enrique Iglesias. And sure, Spaniards are very fun-loving, spontaneous people who love their fiestas and yelling under your window at 3 o'clock in the morning. Because of the social structure of life, it's very common to meet someone through a common group of friends or through social activities. There isn't much of a dating process to speak of, at least with the younger people. It's very common just to do group dates and hang out with each other casually while getting to know each other. Now, this definitely changes the older you get, and also, as I said, things have changed with the rise of the dating apps. In Spain, dating is very casual. Even the word date is not commonly used by younger people. So don't expect the man to come and pick you up, take you to a nice restaurant, pay the bill, and drop you off home, Colombian style. Here you meet for drinks. Maybe the man pays, maybe the woman offers to split, and maybe the woman even fights him for it. After all, Spanish women are very independent. The next country on the list is a neighbor of Spain, and that is Portugal. I had first arrived to Portugal 8 years ago. I had just started the channel and thought I was the real deal, but actually I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And first things first, I wanted to get a sense of what the dating scene was like in Portugal, so I started interviewing men and women. And all I got was groaning and moaning from Portuguese men. Portuguese women, they don't know what they want. They want to make us jump through hoops just to get on a date. It's so difficult. And when I asked Portuguese women all about it, they explained that Portugal was a tight-knit community where friends and family talk. So if you were to have a one-night stand with a man, everybody would essentially find out. It's not much of a surprise then that Portuguese women put their guard up and have men jump through hoops or try to prove that they're in it for real. And I used to attend expat meetups. It was really common to see Portuguese men, but except for my one very international Portuguese girlfriend, it was very rare to see Portuguese women there. And I do believe that Portuguese men were just a lot more open and more interested in meeting foreign women than the Portuguese women were. Portugal has changed a lot in these last few years, but the dating scene still remained fairly traditional. When it comes to other things though, it is Portuguese women that study more than men, and there are also more women in science than men. It's very rare to find a stay-at-home mom here. More than 75% of women have full-time jobs. When it comes to the dating scene though, I find that it's still quite traditional. Men know that, being cocky, arrogant, fooling around and trying to get women into bed is not really gonna work so well here in Portugal. What does work is being chivalrous, nice, and playing the slow game, so to speak. If you've ever met Portuguese women, you will know that there's nothing weak or submissive about them. Portuguese women tend to be very strong and sometimes actually a little bit intimidating. On the other hand, I found Portuguese men to be quite calm, polite, and meek. They are quite passive in their approach. That means they probably won't approach you. If you're coming to Portugal expecting men to chat you up, Italian style, it probably won't happen, as Portuguese men tend to be quite shy. And rightfully so, because that kind of approach is not really going to get you too far in Portugal. What's interesting to note is that Portugal has some of the highest divorce rates in Europe. As many as 60% of Portuguese marriages end in divorce. To put it simply, there are 60 divorces per 100 marriages. Actually, some sources claim the divorce rate as high as 94%, though there is skepticism behind those numbers. Do you have any thoughts about this? Let me know in the comments below. Next country on the list has literally flooded my YouTube channel, and and there's a reason for it. I do love making videos about the Dutch. Dutch are some of the most blunt and to the point people. They are not ones to go for small talk or fluffy conversations, so prepare for them to get right to the point. It's quite common to get asked very straightforward and big questions right off the bat. How old are you? Do you want to have children? What do you expect from this relationship? So don't be jarred if your Dutch date asks you that in the first few days. Dutch are raised to have open debates, and they prefer not to beat around the bush. Efficiency is more practical than taking the time to form the sentence carefully so as not to hurt someone's feelings. Dutch believe in the concept of doe normaal, or do normal, be normal, and that heavily translates into dating. My Dutch friend is in a relationship with a Brazilian guy. But when they just started, she was absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of lovey-dovey things he was telling her. He was calling her amor, he was telling her she was beautiful. She was frustrated, telling me, this is just too much. How can this many lovey-dovey words be real? Do normal, be normal. Don't say what you don't mean, and don't overdo anything. So as can be expected, romance, at least in the grand way, is not much of a thing here in the Netherlands. Similarly to Germany and Scandinavia, Dutch men are not ones to make the first move. They're scared of being labeled a creep or a weirdo, and it's just not much of a thing here in the Netherlands to approach the woman first. So ladies, if you see a guy you like, it's very much okay to approach him. And actually, Dutch guys would very much appreciate someone who's direct and who doesn't operate by old gender norms. This is all for now. I am going to make a part 2 featuring more European countries. So let me know in the comments below which European countries would you love to learn more about. And if you'd like to know which is the best cultural fit for you and the worst, I'm currently developing a quiz to help you figure out just that. The quiz is absolutely free, and it's not like a quiz where I ask you for questions of whether you like tapas or tacos, and based on that you should be dating a Spaniard or a Mexican. Nothing like that. This quiz is highly researched to go in depth. And if you're curious about culture and connection, please go ahead and check out my podcast. I interview guests from all around the world weekly. We talk about culture shocks, moving countries, how to connect with people around the world. Go ahead and check it out either on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And I will see you next week with another video. And as usual, keep breaking down your barriers.